सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The most important development in the ongoing crisis in Manipur is that Union Home Minister Amit Shah has himself gone there to try and douse the fires. And it isn't just one of those flying visits to a distant outpost from New Delhi, land, speak to the press, hold 2 meetings with the state officials, ministers, etc., meet the governor, meet some delegations and head back home to sleep at night. The usual. He has stayed put there for 4 days. It isn't just the longest time he has spent in a troubled state in his years as Home Minister. It is probably the longest any Home Minister has spent being hands-on and camping in the capital of a disturbed state. This is the first and most important public acknowledgement of the fact that the centre is putting the crisis in this so far out of sight, out of mind zone at the top of its concerns. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, therefore, that the Home Minister has invested so much time and political capital in Manipur. The time in Manipur would have enabled him to see the realities of a complex state beyond its electoral politics. In the past 5 decades, since the region was reorganized and the new states came into being in the 1970s, one pattern has been consistent, that whoever rules at the center has generally been able to own, acquire, co-opt or even subvert and substitute local power elites and either form its own government or put loyalists in power. The Congress did it in its times. Even the Janata Party did some of it in its relatively short tenure post 1977. The BJP therefore has done nothing new here, except as with everything else, the BJP prefers scale. So BJP has done it at a scale not done before. It's heady. It's heady for its power. It's heady too also if your party or its tiny, microscopic on the national scale allies rule the Northeast. It rarely happened even in the Indira or Rajiv era. Tripura, for example, where the left continued to beat her Congress and also Rajiv's Congress, her son Rajiv followed a different tack, signing the peace accords with the Mizo separatist insurgents and Assam movement leaders and conceding power to them as a strategy, because these are the elections that followed those accords. The political map of the region looks dramatically different now. The BJP's sway there has no precedent in the Northeast's political history. This also brings problems in its wake, as Amit Shah would have seen on his visit. If he checked the local newspapers while he was in Imphal, he might have flipped the pages to see some different messages. For example, the day after he left on the morning of June 2, the Sangay Express, the leading English language paper in Manipur, had a full front page government advertisement, as is the routine all over the country now. Front page of newspapers is usually some government's ad, not necessarily BJP government, can be AAP, can be KCR's government, one of those. This ad on the Sangay Express page 1, this ad hailed the visit and peacekeeping initiative of Amit Shah ji on the visit. This listed at the top condolences for all the bereaved families from the Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself and the steps taken to restore normalcy and law and order in the state. During his visit from 29th May to 1st June, that is what the ad said, it put the dates there. Once you go beyond the front page, however, you'd see the paper's editorial saying exactly the opposite. I'd repeat a couple of sentences from this editorial, which displays the kind of courage these days found missing from much of our more powerful national media lately. It begins, the Sangay Express editorial begins, and I quote, nearly 1 month down the line and there is nothing to suggest that Manipur is on the road to recovery. Unquote, quotes closed. Then it goes on to remind us that, again quote, gunmen continue to rule the Imphal-Dimapur highway, checking private vehicles in case they are carrying any enemy, which means Meiteis. Quotes closed. The editorial isn't partisan on ethnic lines, although it's a paper in Imphal Valley owned and run by Metis. It's not partisan on ethnic lines. It's a fair and desperate cry from the heart, or what the French would call a cry du cœur. While the editorial talks of the targeting of the Metis and their flight from tribal districts, it also notes how cookies have been violently driven out of the Imphal Valley. And I quote again from the editorial, quote, Imphal and the other valley-based district headquarters are today practically free of the cookies, and despite this tragic reality, either side does not seem to have softened their stance. If in its 9 years in power, little Manipur has emerged as the BJP's most formidable internal security challenge, it is to do with the complex politics and demographics, especially of the smaller northeastern states, besides Assam, of course, which is not a small state. These states have never been easy to govern from Delhi. Manipur, by the way, is so small, its population would not be more than about 33 lakhs now. That's a fraction, small fraction of just Delhi. If you check out the history, year on year, these states, these small states of the northeast, are impossible to govern from Delhi. Over the years, they've also proven impossible to govern from Shillong, the original capital of the larger Assam, or now Guwahati. Each state has a mind, politics, and demographic, and a temperament of its own. The one party, one slogan, one idea, one leadership stuff does not work in these parts. At least not as it might work in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, or even Assam for that matter. The tribal elites have forever resented Delhi's heavy hand. Now, they also have to deal with the regional commissar in Himanta Biswa Sarma. They won't say so in public, but if they speak with you in confidence, they will remind you somewhat wistfully that one big reason they wanted separate states was to get out of Assam's control. Otherwise, why would tiny Mizoram, which used to be Lushai Hills district in Assam, or Nagaland, which used to be Naga Hills district, why would they seek statehood? They were small populations and small ethnicities. The BJP has now brought them back exactly to that situation, domination by a leader from Assam. So domination by Assam. You might want to take note of the fact that the one BJP leader missing in action in Manipur is Himanta Biswa Sarma. Never mind that he is seen as the leader of the entire region, and formally, he leads the Northeastern Democratic Alliance. It's a grouping of all the chief ministers either from the BJP or parties aligned to it, which is all the parties in the northeastern states not directly governed by the BJP. There are multiple reasons that the tiny states of the northeast confound the mainland leaders. I know mainland is politically incorrect or inappropriate, but I use it also as a loaded term. So there are multiple reasons that the tiny states of the northeast confound the mainland leaders, political, administrative, or from the intelligence agencies. These are not just political leaders, but also leaders from the civil services and intelligence agencies. The first is the mindset of autonomy. Maybe the distance over so many decades and centuries and the distinctness of identity complicate this. That's why so many insurgencies began here, and some still smolder. The most significant one, the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, or NSCN for example, is led by, and mostly people at the top, at least at the leadership level, by members of the Tangkhul tribe, who have kept the Modi government waiting for a peace settlement for 9 years. In fact, it was 8 years ago that Prime Minister Modi, at a grand function on the lawns of his house, announced with Naga leaders, NSCN leaders in his presence, that they had signed a framework agreement and a final settlement was around the corner. That was 8 years ago. Its leader, the NSCN leader T. Moiba, is a Tangkhul too. Now think about the fact that the Tangkhul are a tribe that lives not in Nagaland but in Manipur, and they are no more than 6 lakh people all told, if that many. And at this point in Manipur, they aren't even fighting on either side. In fact, their district is the quietest and the most peaceful. They are watching. The Tangkhuls, on the other hand, peaceful as they are right now in Manipur, just help put the challenges of dealing with the region's diversity in perspective. I might go a step forward and qualify this. The region's armed diversity in perspective, because most of these tribes, most of these ethnic groups have enough arms to keep a division of the army busy, should they choose to do so. If these 6 lakh Tangkhuls do not bother about anybody's orders from New Delhi, why would a million cookies? Or tomorrow, who knows, their Mizo cousins next door. It shows how ignorant and oblivious we are to the realities in this complex region that we haven't seen the national media reach out yet and report on the growing anxieties within the Zoramthanga-led Mizo National Front government, which is facing elections later this year. We are so focused on elections in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Telangana that we forget little Mizoram. They are also going to the polls later this year. Mizos and Kukis have a shared ethnic identity. In fact, in Manipur, the Mizos or Mizo tribes and sub-tribes are generally grouped under the larger Kuki umbrella, or they are in the Kuki tent. And if the anger from Manipur flows across the border into Mizoram, it will make life that much tougher for the MNF, which is now seen as a BJP ally, as an NDA member. So this anger with the BJP among the Kukis can then start filtering into or flowing into Mizoram as well in an election year. There are 3 things you never want to do in these smaller northeastern states. 1, tell the people that their chief minister is just a figurehead and the real bosses live elsewhere, namely in Delhi or now in Guwahati as well. 2nd, play one ethnicity against the other to conjure up a majority in your favor. Because remember, if you do that, then once you get left behind, who might lose to you electorally, but see themselves as being on the other side, there'll be still a critical mass of them and a critical mass with weapons to make your life difficult, as is the case right now in Manipur. And 3rd, never suggest a homogenization or subsuming of the distinct ethnic, linguistic, cultural identities into a rounded national one. Over the decades, as separatism has declined in the northeast, these states have gently grown into a calmer, less chest-thumping, relaxed, even serendipitous idea of Indian nationalism. Any effort to fast forward that causes an immune reaction. Since our focus right now is Manipur, just remember how central Manipur is to the idea of India. The first time independent India's flag was unfurled on Indian soil by an advancing nationalist army was in Manipur. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose at Mairang on 14th April 1944, just about 45 kilometers from Imphal city. It was then the gateway to Delhi. Remember his slogan, Delhi Chalo? It was the gateway to Delhi. So this is where he started his Delhi Chalo process. Now it looks up to the same Delhi for better understanding and some bit of empathy.